It's interesting. You go from all this hype and all this excitement around the first game to, I don't want to call it a letdown week, but one that's a little bit more quiet and chill. I think all of the excitement is around the fact that Nebraska fans get to go back to Memorial Stadium. You get to see what we'll call a guaranteed win at this point. I would hope it was guaranteed because my God, if it wasn't, wouldn't that derail things? But outside of that, it just feels a little calm. You get to look towards some of the other bigger matchups of the weekend and hope that Nebraska at least covers if you're going to bet on them. I like when Nebraska plays these weak teams because you get to learn about the depth. Last year we got to see what Nebraska's younger players could do, and then you get to watch them go a couple weeks later, and everything's a fight. So last week was our fight. This week is the chill one. And it's harder to talk about it. It's harder to, get motivated to watch content all week. At least it is for me. Because what are these guys going to tell me about Akron's quarterback or their receiver who had 4 catches for 30 yards or whatever it was against another team that wasn't anywhere near as good as Nebraska? I think the excitement is you get to drink at the stadium. You get back in and see that light show. It's a night game, so the players are going to be amped up, and they've got something to prove after. I don't want to say fans shit on the players last week, but there was definitely a little negative aura. So some of these guys are going to want to get back out there and show that this team is as good as they think they are and give some fans something to get hyped up over going forward. So, hey guys, it's Thursday. We're 2 days before the game, and we're on the first night of NFL football. I think Dallas plays the Eagles, which, traditionally is a pretty weak game, but first game of the season, I'm sure Eagles are going to have some kinks to work out, and it should be relatively close. I think that starts in the next 20-ish minutes here. But I'm not that big on NFL, so I'd rather come here and talk about college football with you. I was looking at the AP poll voters this week. I'm going to get to chat in a second. I just pulled this up right before I hopped on here, and I wanted to get your thoughts. So this is every single voter who votes in the AP. If you're unfamiliar with how the AP works, all of these guys put their votes in, and women, not just guys. Everyone puts their vote in, and then obviously based on the calculation, the votes are accumulated to each team, and that's how we get our rankings. So if you see here at the very bottom, Sam McEwen from the Omaha World Herald, interestingly enough, this is the one reason I pulled it up. He put Virginia in his top 25. They have Chandler Morris at quarterback. I am relatively high on Virginia this week. That's a team I'm going to take against NC State. But he has them above Nebraska. Nebraska's own reporter doesn't have Nebraska in the top 25. Interesting. And then you look at the guy right below him and right above him, both have Nebraska in that top 25 range. So I was surprised to see that. When you cover Nebraska and you get to get excited about it, why wouldn't you want to give him a chance to be in the top 25 by voting him in? But hey, if he's objectively giving his opinion and he's not trying to have any allegiance or bias, maybe that makes sense. I wasn't too thrown off by the AP poll this week. It looked about right. And it's not really going to come to shape until we get to week 3, week 4, after you've seen more teams play against Power 5, Power 4 competition. And then we'll see, a realistic view. Speaking of the NFL, one more thing I saw. Brett McMurphy put up the amount of NFL players on active rosters. He ranked them. So if you look at the top, obviously, is Bama, Georgia, and Ohio State right behind. But on this list, there are some teams in here that, surprise you. Stanford comes in with 26, just as many as Clemson. Tennessee, 26, just as many as Stanford and Clemson. USC makes sense. I actually think USC is a bit low, but that has to do with their coaching mishaps over the past couple hires. Then you have South Carolina, Washington, UCLA, Wisconsin, and Miami, but no Nebraska. Not that I'm surprised Nebraska's not in there. It's just when you look at all of these schools ahead of them, it's like, oh, God, that's a gut check. It also adds in that Nebraska has less than 22, which is like, really? Well, you're down bad right now. But these are not new things. These aren't things that you weren't surprised to see. It's more so just the idea that, geez, when you put that writing right in front of your face, it's a reality check, and it's a come to terms with it moment that Nebraska's not at the top of their game yet, but they're on their way back to it. Dave, thank you for being here. Thanks for being a member, and thank you for the $10 super chat. He says, I think we need to celebrate our Cincy win more. I thought we had the right scheme. Players were just rusty. We must learn to win close games before we win by large margins. And damn, that's a freaking fact, Dave. I thought about it this week, and I was like, man, I was frustrated by the way the game played out. I thought Nebraska had moments where they could have gone and really put the dagger in them, and they didn't. That's why I was frustrated. I wasn't as frustrated with Cincinnati being the opponent that they struggled against. And not that they struggled, it was just a war up until the end, which most games in the Big Ten are. It's just the fact that it was a Big 12 team, the fact that so many national people had said Cincinnati wasn't as good, and then the fact that the point spread was 6.5 just made people think Nebraska was supposed to win by more. But yeah, I did celebrate that win internally, and I do feel good about Nebraska's odds to build off of this with their schedule going forward. So I've been celebrating it. I know for a fact you have, and hopefully Nebraska fans now have gotten over it and realized every team struggled week one, and there's a lot more positive coming down the road. Nintendo says, let's shut them out, referring to Akron. That will be interesting. I don't know about that one. Shutouts are hard to come by. Rusty says he hopes that we score at least 45 on offense. That one I like a lot better. 45 on offense is not only realistic, but I would say expected, at least from what you've seen from Akron so far over the past couple of years under Joe Moorhead. They're not a superstar team, they're decent, but when Nebraska comes to town, or when they come to town and visit Lincoln, Nebraska should be able to, I don't want to say embarrass them because it's expected, but they should be able to thump them, if that's fair. Switch, thanks for the $2 super chat. He says, go big freaking red. Love the channel and content. Well, thank you for being here, Switch. We appreciate the support. Saray says she thinks we dropped a spot in the AP. May have dropped a spot in the AP, but the JP, the Josh Pate poll, the model has raised Nebraska, I believe, from like 25 to 21. So that was positive. I think that's a poll that I respect more than the AP. The AP isn't that serious, If you watch Josh Pate's show, which you guys all probably do and should, he talks about how the AP voters, they make their initial list before the season, and then they adjust their rankings week to week based off that initial rankings list in the preseason. The problem is you don't know who these teams are in the preseason. We know absolutely nothing, just like we didn't know anything about Florida State last season or even this season to say they weren't ranked in the preseason, right? So you now should completely scratch your rankings and reset, because you now have a new barometer and you know what this team looks like based off 1 week of play. The AP voters don't usually do that. They just move teams based off where they started them at, which, yeah, I'm not sure if that makes much sense. So again, JP poll has Nebraska higher up than the AP. So yeah. Scott says, what about Cam Jurgens and Ty Robinson? Those are two players who are on NFL teams, Scott, but that still does not add up to 22, unfortunately. Let's see. Marcus, welcome to the first live stream that you're able to watch. They're fun, We like to be a community over here of Nebraska fans who get to hang out together, and that's what this is. It's different from my other types of videos where I'm sitting there talking to the camera. This is more intimate and more of like a homey setting, So I'm glad you get to experience it. Colby says 9-3 would be a truly successful season for this team. 8-4 with this schedule would be weird. Limbo milestone where nobody's thrilled, but also should be no talk of firing Rule either. Well, we're so far from any firing talk of Rule, Colby, that it doesn't even need to be said anywhere. The chat, online, it's just, we're so far from it. Rule's doing a great job. Just from a recruiting standpoint alone, not even from what's been proven on the field yet, but just from the recruiting and the marketing of the program and the way Nebraska is respected now. I'm telling you, my dad calls me all the time telling me about the things he sees online, TikToks or the YouTube stuff. He's like, man, Matt Rule is really, really covering ground. So yeah, 8-4 is realistic. I think we can all agree with that being a fair expectation, and it should be the expectation. Vegas set the line at Nebraska to win 7.5 games this year. So if they get 8, that's the expectation. 9-3 would be a success and a little bit above what the expectation is. So I 100% agree with you. Hopefully Nebraska can achieve more, and we'll never know until we see them play real tough competition, which is going to be week 4 against Michigan. Scott, thanks for being a member. He says, I think people underrated Cincy. They had some vets on their roster. Just glad to see him finish a close one. They did. They had vets, guys who returned, who were studs, obviously on both sides of the ball. They had good transfers. People just got too high on Nebraska in the preseason. I fault the national people who were saying Nebraska's going to be a playoff team, and then it got everybody all balled up and said, oh my God, Nebraska's going to be that good, And then as soon as they play a close game, you're like, what? This is BS. We heard that Nebraska was supposed to be a playoff team. How can they struggle against Cincinnati? Well, look, Cincinnati's a Big 12 team. They're good. You just got a little bit too excited. Doug, thanks for being a member. Thank you for the $5. He says, I'll be at all home games. Maybe I'll see you at one GBR. Yeah, Doug, I will be at Michigan and I will be at USC. So got to catch me at one of those. I really enjoy going to the games, by the way. It's like my favorite thing. But just as much as I enjoy going to the games, I really like sitting by myself on my couch watching and taking notes, because you guys know I like to do my post-game live reaction, and it's much more comfortable to do it from home than to do it in a hotel room or outside the stadium afterwards. So yeah, it's tough for me to go to all these games, like I could go to 3 or 4 of them a year. It's just, I like to be able to do my live streams at home. I also like to go to other games around the state or around the country, visit other stadiums, like this year I'm doing my first game in Georgia. I'm doing Texas at Georgia. And then I'm doing Texas, Oklahoma, the Red River Rivalry. I was supposed to go that, 2010, 2010 when I was in high school, and I had a football injury. I was literally on crutches, could not go. It was the day after I got hurt. I was supposed to go to the game. So had to scratch that one. So this will be my first ever Red River Rivalry. Shellin says, are you not doing regular videos anymore? I am not. It took up too much of my time. This was supposed to be a hobby for me, and it became a job. And I loved it as a job, but I have other jobs I do. And it was holding me back from being my best self. So I had to switch up, go back to live streaming only, so that I didn't get myself all balled up making videos, 8 hours a day. It was fun though. It was a great experience being able to make all those videos. And obviously it built a really good community for us, because we now have almost 24,000 people who have been subscribed to the channel and have had millions and millions of views. So it's been a good time. But yeah, different content style going forward. Brad says all rankings should be considered null and void before conference play. I mean, if you get a couple Power 4 conference games in, non-conference Power 4 games in, I think that's fair to start a little early. But yeah, I do think we got to adjust the ranking system. Connor, who do you think our Big 12 foe home and home should be against? Is that what you're saying? Should? I think Oklahoma would be, or not Oklahoma, sorry, Colorado. I'm thinking of rivalries. I think it would be Colorado. I think Kansas could be an interesting one, or Kansas State. I think those are like the OG Big 12 rivalries. And if you brought one of those back, it'd be pretty fun. I mean, the Colorado home and home series was really nice for Nebraska, right? It was a tough one in 2023 when they lost, but it was a really cool experience to go to Colorado and then to have all that pent up aggression from both fan bases. Probably that one. That's the one I'd lean. But Kansas State would be cool too. I think back to like the Kansas State games. One that was really fun was 2011 with Taylor Martinez. Nebraska scored like 50 points that day. So that's a fun little rivalry. Kansas, different type of rivalry. It's more so it's just close proximity. Not that Kansas was ever a serious competitor with Nebraska, but just because there's history there. I think any Big 12 team is just, bring back the memories. A lot of young people don't remember those games. Like there was no Oklahoma State perennial matchup. So people who are in college today don't even remember that. Whereas I do. Or Texas Tech, same thing. I think my first ever Nebraska game was, maybe it was my first or my second, against Texas Tech, and Wes Wilker was playing on the team. That was in year, 2001, something like that. Crazy. Rushy says he thinks the team makes a big jump this weekend. I think so too. I think last weekend they played a really tough team. This weekend they're playing a really weak team. So you get the combo of you're playing a team with far less talent and not as good at coaching, paired with the idea that Nebraska's now going to have this week of film under their belt and they're going to know what to do better. So yeah, this could be a solid bounce back after a tough one last week. Let's see. Dallas says, if nothing else, we can at least say confidently that the team is more disciplined, better ball control, fewer stupid penalties. 100%. It felt more disciplined last weekend. There weren't like the stupid turnovers that cost them games. I mean, Dylan did have a really costly one, but he did get it back. So yeah. The turnovers hopefully improve this year, because that's the difference between Nebraska winning 7 and 9 games, right? Juan, thanks for being a member. He says, what's good, Connor? If the USC game isn't a night game, will it take away from the blackout? No, it wouldn't. Definitely not. I think it's going to be a night game, but it wouldn't. People would still be amped up. It would probably still be a 2:30 game, right? So if it was a 2:30 game, it would still turn to night at some point. And people are going to be amped up for the blackout no matter what. It's a unique experience, a one-time deal. It'll be really fun. No matter what, it'll be a blackout and it'll be lit. So don't worry about that. Let's see. Girth says, I should be at Michigan and USC. I was at Arrowhead last week and it looked worse in person than it did watching after. But that's fine by me. If I see ya, that's fine by me. If I see ya, I'll have to say what's up. 100% Girth. I'll have to say what's up to you too. Let's see. Joe says, what percentage for USC being a night game? I have no idea. I'm the wrong person to ask. I literally could not tell you. Craig says, do these videos still get uploaded after? So if you go to my live tab on YouTube, I'll actually show you. Just make it easy. Just for anyone in the stream who doesn't know or anybody who watches these. So if you go over to Corn Crazed, the YouTube channel, I'll show you right here. We're on the YouTube channel Corn Crazed, right? We click it. You've got my home tab, which is where you can see everything. You can see like live now, and then these are all the live streams. And then if you go here to live, bang, you have all the live streams I've done for the past a long time. I don't know. Look at like this one's from last year when I'm sitting in the Graduate Hotel after the Colorado game giving my reaction. So yeah, you can see all these old live streams. They all exist. And I try to change the thumbnails after. So like I'll put a thumbnail up here similar to this week 1 prediction with Cincinnati for the Akron one. But that's how we do it. It's how we make it efficient. Make it so you guys can watch it whenever you feel like watching it, you know? Berkeley says, does anyone see the Mickey Joseph presser about Ohio State? He's the head coach at Grambling. I don't, he said something about the band, I thought. I saw something, he said something about the band, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what it was. I'll have to watch his press conference. I want to see Mickey be successful, man. He went through it with Nebraska. A lot of drama. Hopefully it all worked out. It kind of just disappeared, right? Like I never heard the aftermath. Rashi says, what makes this Akron game scary to you? Letting up multiple TDs is one for me. Yeah, so I think back to Nebraska playing Northern Iowa last year. And what was scary was that the game felt competitive the entire way through. Not that the score was competitive, but that the game felt that way. It felt like Nebraska wasn't able to pull away and they weren't looking as dominant as they should. It felt like the turnovers and the penalties and the things that you wouldn't expect to happen when you're playing an FCS school were just too frequent. And if Nebraska had that same kind of blip where they show up and it feels like they're the better team, but then they come out and they just look a little flat and unmotivated, is that the word I would use for that Northern Iowa game? I'm not sure if I would use it. I'd have to go back and watch because it's been a long time since I watched that game. But it did leave me feeling like there was more to be desired. And I think if I left this Akron game feeling the exact same way, I'd be frustrated if I'm being real with you. You want to see a dominant blowout. Nebraska or USC played against Missouri State last week, and I think they scored 70 points or close to it. They were dominant in all phases. Their backup quarterback came in. He was 9 of 9. He's a true freshman. It was his first ever game. And it's like, okay, well, if USC and a bunch of other schools around the country who were able to hang 50 to 60 points on weaker competition, why can't Nebraska? Now, this would be different if Akron was a really good team, but Akron's not a very good team. If you look back to last season, the season before, and you look at how many losses they've had and how big the losses were, I mean, here, let's just look. This is 2022, okay? This is 3 years ago. Akron played against Michigan State. They were the number 14 in the country, but they still won 52-0, okay? Then they played against Tennessee, number 15 in the country. They won 63-6. Fast forward to the 2023 season. Keep in mind, this is the season when Nebraska played Louisiana Tech, and Louisiana Tech was able to keep it a 14-point game. Okay. Louisiana Tech is better than Akron in 2023, but it's still a shame that Nebraska wasn't able to create a bigger score differential. They played at Kentucky in 2023. They lost 35-3. Decent, but I would still expect Kentucky to win by more. Indiana went to 4 overtimes. Indiana this season, I believe, won 3 games, so take it with a grain of salt. But Akron kept it within 2 points. Then you go to 2024. Akron plays Ohio State, loses 52-6. They play at Rutgers. They lose 49-17. They played at South Carolina. They lost 50-7. So you understand where I'm getting at, right? Nebraska needs to dominate because other teams have shown they can. And this is a team that isn't going to give you they aren't going to present that many challenges. I know Matt Rule did say in his presser, Akron runs a really creative offense. And I know they have a 2-quarterback system. One guy's a dual threat and one's Ben Finley, who's their returning starter. But the talent mismatch should be so significant that Nebraska should be able to pull away rather early. And even if they aren't able to pull away early, they need to be able to lean on them in the third quarter and just wear them out with their defensive and offensive lines, right? And that's where you would see the big teams back. I've talked about, like, when I grew up, I went to USC games. So when I was 12 years old, I remember the top 10 USC teams just leaning on Washington and Arizona State, whoever all they played, Stanford. And eventually those teams would just break. Nebraska should be able to do this week in and week out with lower competition. They weren't able to do that with Cincinnati, but Cincinnati's a Power 4 program, right? So Yeah, I'm just expecting I'm expecting Nebraska to be able to dominate. You can tell by the way I'm talking, I'm expecting them to be able to cover the spread. Let's see. Brian says Kingsbury was the QB. He was the QB back in 2001. That's insane to think about. It's crazy to think when I was 8 years old, I was watching Cliff Kingsbury play at Nebraska. And then as an adult, like 5 years ago or whatever it was, I was in a bar with Cliff Kingsbury in LA when he was coaching. Who was he coaching? It was after Texas Tech, I think. He must have been in the NFL. I don't know. But it's just interesting how the world, changes up, how things come to be. Caleb says, if Wyoming shut them out at home, then I'd worry if they can score more than 10 on us. Here's the difference, Caleb. I understand this prediction, this point you're trying to make. But Wyoming was in the dogfight with Akron the entire way through, and they were doing everything they could, which means they never pulled out their starters. It was a war up until the end of the game. Nebraska will not allow them to score a point in the first half. I'm confident in that. The issue becomes when Nebraska moves to their second team or their third team. Do you have a freshman who makes a mistake? One missed tackle and a Akron guy could get loose for a TD. That's all it takes. One missed tackle from a guy who's never played in the game before. Think about that. Do I predict a shutout? No. Nebraska hasn't shut a team out in a while. Do I predict they hold them to less than 10? Right now, I'm on the edge. We're going to wait till we get to the end of this video, but I'm predicting either 7 or 10 points from Akron. Yeah, they're scoring. I think they're scoring for sure. It's just how many are they going to score? Let's see. Girth says, are you going to have a meet and greet at any of the games I'll be at? I don't know if I'll do a meet and greet. I might go to a bar the night before or something and tell you guys where I'll be at. If you want to meet, you can message me on Instagram or Twitter, and I'll tell you where I'm going to be at the game. Like maybe I pull up outside the stadium after. I don't know. We'll figure it out. If you want to meet me, though, just message me somewhere, and I'll try to make it work. I'm into meeting people. I love, like, we all are in here hanging out, talking. So if I have a chance to meet you, I'd really like to. Let's see. Ike, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $10 super chat. He says, love the show, Connor. As a Husker and a Wyoming Pokes fan and watching the Wyoming versus Akron game last week, if the Akron QB plays like he did last week, this game will be ugly for Akron. GBR and go Pokes. Here's the one issue. I expect him to play better because it's week 2. I expect Nebraska to play better because it's week 2. It's hard for me to make a prediction, but I like yours, and I'm hoping yours is accurate. So right now, I'm going to ride with Ike, and I'm going to say Ben Finley's going to play pretty weak. Their backup QB's not going to do anything better, and it's going to be ugly for Akron. I'm excited for it. Ike, as an Akron fan, would you take the points or would you give them? The spread currently is 34. Some places I think it's 34.5, but it's a key number. It's under 35. Would you take Akron or would you take Nebraska? Let's see. Michelle says, I rewatched the game from last weekend. We weren't as bad as it first looked, I guess. Dylan needs to use his legs more when there are obvious holes. Yeah, I wonder if Dylan's going to use his legs more, or if after a whole off season and knowing that he had the potential to, he's just going to say screw it and not do so. He's a distributor, and that's another thing I was thinking about. When I talked about Dylan in high school, and before he had come to Nebraska, I talked about how he's a distributor and he likes to get the ball to playmakers, and that's his whole role. He's just an elite distributor. Then he goes out against Cincinnati, and he is an elite distributor, throwing for 243 yards, getting the ball to 9 different receivers. Never used his legs, just dumped it off the entire game. People call him a check down merchant, say whatever you want. He's a distributor. That's what he does. If he can get the ball out, he's going to get it out and let someone else make a play, right? So, yes, I'd love to see him use his legs, but naturally he is going to try to distribute it to a guy who has better legs than he does, because look at all the weapons they've got. The guys who can make moves in space, like even Lindenmeyer is coming out, a guy who we totally never expected to be a playmaker as a tight end, right? He's one who was previously undiscovered and now has shown he can be one of those guys for Dylan. So they've got a lot of them. Let's see. Pit Snipe Husker, thank you for being a member. He says, Connor lives. Good to see you regular again. Yes, sir. I'm glad that I can make content again like normal. It's fun when there's stuff to talk about, harder in the off season when things are slow. Doug, thanks for the $5 super chat. Thank you for being a member. He says, sometimes I can't help but think that someone is not letting us get a blowout win because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings towards FCS schools. You know, I would agree with you. But the way Nebraska's looked, and it hasn't been the coaching, it's been, you know, some of the players and the execution errors. I don't know who that somebody would be, but it seems like a group effort of somebody who are holding Nebraska back from getting blowout wins, unfortunately. Girth says, Connor, how are you liking Arizona? I'm sure it's better than LA. I love Arizona. It's much more calm here, peaceful, and even though it's hot, there's no traffic. I really appreciate a life where I don't have to deal with traffic, I'll tell you that. Going to the airport, just so we're all on the same page, is 8 minutes. It takes me 8 minutes to get to the airport. In LA, it was 50 minutes each way. So, life-changing move, if I can say so. Let's see. I wish we could say we were that good, Doug. It's hilarious. Real young on the O-line. Just scrolling, guys. Just scrolling. Okay, so before we talk about the Akron game, last week I did, before the Cincinnati game, I gave you my predictions for week 1 for the Big Ten. So this is what we were looking at. I picked Rutgers to beat Ohio. Barely did. I picked Minnesota. I picked Nebraska to beat Cincinnati, though. That was off. I picked Wisconsin, Michigan State, Illinois. The only one I was wrong on, I picked UCLA to beat Utah, it looks like, which I'm confused by because I loved Utah. So either this was a mistake on my stream and I wasn't paying attention, or I just decided to go with an upset. Who knows? So last week, I guess I missed one pick. But then come to this week. This is what I had predicted originally. I had Illinois over Duke. I had Iowa State over Iowa. I had Oklahoma over Michigan. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but this Oklahoma-Michigan game is massive for week 4. And it sets up for, a top 25 showdown, almost no matter what. I do believe Nebraska beating Akron and beating Houston Christian should be enough to push them into the top 25 by the time week 4 rolls around. Will Michigan still be in the top 25? Probably, since they're ranked in the top 15 right now, even with a loss to OU. Regardless, it's a huge game for the spread. It's a huge game for the national media to report on it. So I'm watching this game really close. The only downside with the Michigan OU game this weekend, it's at the exact time as the Akron game. Yep, frustrating. So hopefully we get to see, little bits and pieces before I do my live stream. When I say we, I mean me. What I'll probably have to do is put my computer next to me while I watch Nebraska on my TV, put Michigan OU on the computer, and then I'll be able to watch them both at the same time. So when I come and do my live reaction, I can do some sort of a reaction to OU Michigan as well. But we'll see. Anyway, so I wanted to give you my prediction for this week. I'm taking Duke to beat Illinois. I'm taking Iowa State to beat Iowa still. I'm taking... Some of these are messed up. I don't know if this is all my accurate picks from last week. I thought this was saved properly, but it might not be. Doesn't matter, though. I'm just going to give you my picks right now. I'm taking Michigan State to beat Boston College. I'm taking UNLV to beat UCLA. Man, I don't want to say I was high on UCLA to start the season, but I did feel like some sort of need to respect them after watching the way they closed out with wins over Nebraska and Iowa last year. But now, after watching them get their ass kicked by Utah, keep in mind Utah's a great team. I think Utah could finish in the top 10 if they run the table in the Big 12 and they get to the Big 12 championship. But the way they played was just so gross, and I didn't think it was that big of a talent discrepancy. Like, Utah's a more talented team, but UCLA still got some good players. They just didn't look good. So I'm taking UNLV to beat UCLA. It would be an upset technically because they're a 2.5 point dog. But yeah, I'm also taking Michigan State to beat Boston College. I think they're a 4-point favorite right now, something like that. But I do think Michigan State is going to be in a good position by the time we get to the Nebraska game in Lincoln. So some tough games coming up for Nebraska. Looking at the Akron game right now, 34-point spread. You got Ben Finley, who, I mean, is this a good stat line for week 1 for a returning QB? against Wyoming. By the way, Wyoming returned 2 starters on defense. They returned, I think, 5 on offense. No, Wyoming returned more than that. They returned 3 on defense. They returned like 7 or 8 on offense. But Akron, 16 of 38 with a pick. Ben Finley is not very good. Ike was right. I just have, low expectations for this offense that's coming in here. Nebraska's defense obviously needs to get more pressure on the quarterback, but don't you think they'll be able to? There's going to be a serious size mismatch and advantage on the black shirts side of the ball. So I think there'll be no problem. Do we predict turnovers? I would say Nebraska gets at least 1, if not 2 picks. Should they force a fumble? Probably. I just don't know what you're looking at. Like, are you looking at a team who's going to come in and has a bunch of production from this 2024 season where they beat Toledo? Or is this a team that's depleted by the transfer portal and now you're just looking at FCS transfers and guys from high school who are trying to make a mark? I would probably lean the latter. So it's a game where I'm expecting Nebraska just to come out and roll. The history with Nebraska playing against these what do you call them? Are they group of 4? I guess we'll call it group of 4. These group of 4 teams says that Nebraska is going to win in convincing fashion, at least on the score side, but they're going to let them stay in it to the point where you feel a little bit uncomfortable by game's end. And let me explain what I mean by that. We're going to go to Nebraska in the past few years, Nebraska football 2022. Okay. So they played North Dakota in 2022. They won by 21. Should they have won by more? Probably. They played Georgia Southern. They lost by 3, sorry. Just absolutely a joke. So that's where this whole history starts for me. 2022. Even though it was Scott Frost era, we're still going to look back that close because that's all I've seen is Nebraska keep games close with inferior opponents. Then you go here. Northern Illinois, they only beat by 24 in Matt Rule's first season. Louisiana Tech, they only beat by 14 in Matt Rule's first season. You go to last year. They played UTEP. This one was impressive. I was happy with this win. This is the one you can point to and say, okay, Nebraska did their thing that day. They won by 33 points. Dylan had a fantastic stat line. Isaiah Naor even looked good. There were a lot of positive takeaways from this game against UTEP. But you fast forward to the Northern Iowa game. It was at night. Nebraska was ranked in the top 25 for the first time in a while. And it just felt like they should have put a better performance on, and they didn't. They won by 31, but there were some stupid penalties. There were the turnovers. There were missed tackles. It just felt like Northern Iowa was able to drive the field at times. And it was like, why are they able to run it down our throats, So history says Nebraska needs to correct their issues, and they need to find a way to separate themselves and really embarrass a team who is inferior in almost every single way. I'd say the number one thing I'm looking for in this game is Dylan to work with his running backs, not just Emmett Johnson, but with Mekhi Nelson and Isaiah Mosey, and to see which one of those guys can be the receiving back similar to what Emmett Johnson is. Obviously, one of those guys is going to separate themselves as the definitive number 2. I think most people are assuming it's going to be Nelson. But which one has the receiving back abilities that Emmett Johnson brings to the table? Because that's, I think, one of the most important assets that Dana Holgorsen has in this offense. You look at all these yards that Emmett Johnson racked up at the end of last year, and a lot of it came in the receiving game. He was super sure-handed. So which of these backup backs is going to be able to do the exact same thing? And that's something nobody knows yet. So I'm looking for that. The defensive line, people are excited to see which defensive linemen are dominant, but I just expect all of them to be. Are you going to be able to look at this game and say, oh, they looked and played so much better than they did last week, and it's a legitimate reason to be excited for the future? Probably not, because the expectation is when you play a weaker team, you're going to be able to throw them around, and there's going to be some manhandling going on. So defensive line, I'm not looking to learn too much. It's more so which backups are going to come in. And then with Dylan, is he going to be able to be accurate, and will he be able to hit some deep throws? Last week, we saw no deep throws. Obviously, Cincinnati had a really good defensive game plan to make Dylan keep it short, which was fine. That's what he specializes in. I didn't call him this. People called him a check down merchant. I called him a distributor. when he distributes the ball underneath, can he do the same exact thing over the top? And we saw him do it at times last year. We also saw some missed throws last year when he went deep, but some picks. But I'm expecting against Akron, he'll be able to show us all of the preseason hype that the coaches were talking about and the national media was too. So hoping for that. I think the last thing I'm looking for is Nebraska to just come out fiery and stay that way the entire way through. It was a little bit inconsistent against Cincinnati. I explained how against the FCS team last year they played, it was inconsistent. Can they play the complete game like a USC did last week or any other team who threw up 60 points on their lower tier opponent? I don't know that. I want to see it. If you are a true playoff contender, not saying we need to focus on all that, but if you have that level of ability, you should be able to dominate in the games that you're supposed to dominate in. They're a 34-point favorite. Even if they allow 7 or 10 points, that means they need to score 40 plus. Nebraska has not been a team that scores 40 plus, although the expectation is they're going to average at least 35 points a game this year. Expectation from me, at least. I don't know. I'm still hesitant to make a prediction that Nebraska can be that dominant. The only reason that I'm going to make a prediction that they will is because I think Akron is that bad. I think Akron's a total mess, and I don't think it's all Akron's fault. I think part of the issue is these group of 4 teams are just getting stripped every season. After they find out who their best players are, a mid-level team like a Big 12 school comes in and says, we want him, we're going to pay for him, you can't afford to, peace. Part of the reason Akron's even coming to Nebraska is not to win this game. They're coming to Nebraska to get their check, right? They're trying to keep enough money so they can pay their own players. So, yeah, it's an interesting world of college football. And if I had it my way, Nebraska wouldn't even play games like this. You only get 12 games a season, right? You get 12, and between the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10, usually they each play one FCS and one group of 4 team. Now, Matt Rule talked about how it's important because it's the lifeline for those schools. It's how they can afford to keep their programs alive, which I totally respect. I get it. It makes sense. But selfishly, I would prefer no SEC, Big 12, or Big 10 school scheduled these teams. I wish it was only big games every weekend. I only get to watch 12 games a year, right? Same as you. And when I only get to watch 12, I want to max those out. Now we're going to get 13 because Nebraska's going to be going bowling every year. But my point is, I want to see them max it out. I don't need to see scrimmages against high school teams, against teams who just have no business being on the same field. And I'm not saying that in a mean way. They're just in a totally different world when it comes to facilities, when it comes to talent development, when it comes to coaching. They don't have the same money. So it's not a fair fight, right? It's not as fun to watch. So I'm just trying to make it through these couple weeks. Them and then Houston Christian. And again, this isn't a Nebraska issue. This is a college football as a whole issue. I just wish they would change it so that every single team could. I don't wish they would change it because what Matt Rule said made sense about wanting to take care of these smaller schools. But I would appreciate if I could watch more Nebraska football against tougher competition so that we could see what this team is really made of. Because right now, we're not going to learn that much. Jim, thanks for being here. Thank you for the 1234. He says, Huskers, number 2s combined for 4 touchdowns. Mekhi Nelson, Mosee, Clark, Mills, Carter Nelson, Harburg, and Latif. Stay healthy. I like that prediction, Jim, but 4 TDs sounds like a lot. Let me alter this a bit. I could see Nebraska putting up 2 TDs with their backups, unless we were going to say they were going to score 50 points. Here's what my thought is. Nebraska likely leaves their starters in through the third quarter. When we get halfway through the third, they start to inject the backups in. That could mean Dane Key is out, right? They could say he's got plenty of experience. We know what he has. The chemistry's already there. Same with Isaiah Hunter. Same with Ja'Cory Barney, who was a little bit banged up after Cincy. So the backup tight ends and the backup receivers could start to come. But Dylan will probably still be in. So I'd say 2. Then if we were to say Latif comes in, and Latif wants to impress and he wants to do his thing, maybe Latif leads a touchdown drive. So I'm not going to go 4. I'm going to go 3. I'm going to go 1 under you. But I do like where your head's at with this. I think third quarter is where we start to see backup scoring touchdowns. That's probably the most likely. Unless Mosee or Nelson came in earlier and they got off. Then that could change this prediction. But I do like that. Pit Snipe says, I want to see more from Carter Nelson, but Lindenmeyer and HH's performance have me feeling greedy to want more. I do want to see Carter Nelson too, but he was banged up. And I think Dana said this week they were trying to make sure that he was fully healthy before they gave him a chance. It makes sense. You don't want to put a guy out there too early. We've seen in the past when guys go out too early, they get re-injured. And you just want to make sure they're in the best position possible. So hopefully Carter Nelson does get to play. He played last year against, who was it? It was early on. Was it Northern Illinois? I don't know who it was. Maybe I'm thinking of Thomas Fedoni against Northern Illinois. Both tight ends technically. But no, Carter Nelson played last year, and he had a touchdown early in the season. It was fun to watch. And then he got hurt, and we were jammed up. Let's see here. Jose says, we've already fallen short of that expectation. If we can't score more than 20 on a Big 12, I doubt we'll be able to turn into some high-scoring machine against a Big 10 team out of the blue. So, Jose, here's the one thing you have to remember. They only scored 20 against Cincinnati, but it should have been 24. Very well could have been 24. And if they would have had one more drive extended just a little bit, it would have gotten to 31. So I do think there's, more to be desired out of the offense, but you can't make the judgment off of one game. Things are going to change. Luck will shift. They will be just fine when we get to Big Ten play. If I'm wrong, then we're talking about an 8-win Nebraska team. If I'm wrong, then yeah, we got to look inside and see what's going on. Why is Dana Holgorsen not able to make this offense hum more than Satterfield was able to? Because even Satterfield was able to score 20 points a game, right? Let's see. The conservative Husker, shake my head. I come back after a year and it's a negative comment from you. I don't know what we're talking about. Don't understand. Don't know what negative comment I made. I'm a eternal optimist and overly positive on this channel. Some say it's a negative thing. You say I'm negative. Crazy. Saray, thanks for being here. Thanks for being a member. I'm just hoping our D-line doesn't get pushed around. It would be worrisome. We should be manhandled, or we should have manhandled them with how they played last week. Yeah, I don't think the D-line's going to get pushed around. If the D-line gets pushed around by Akron, my God, it is going to be a freaking problem, let me tell you. I'm hoping we don't see that. Don't get me started. Thanks for being a member. He says, I've heard some pundits say that Hartzog is fine in zone, but trash in man coverage. What say you, Connor? Do you think there's anything to be concerned about there? I don't know, because I don't study Hartzog enough to know. I do know this. Hartzog has made enough plays to make me believe that he's a sufficient starter in the secondary. And yeah, maybe he is better in zone than he is in one-on-one, but I still would rather him back there than most other DBs on Nebraska's roster, just because he's already proven it time and time again. The only thing that you can say is his size has jammed him up at times, especially against USC. But outside of that, he has really good playmaking ability. He's a ball hawk. He's fast. Hartzog's a good player. So until they get somebody who's better, I'm not going to be saying you need to put somebody else back there, because right now he's been, what is it? A 4-year start, 3-year starter. 22, I think, is when he came on. 22 in the Rutgers game is what I remember. 23, 24. This is his 4th year starting. So Hartzog's a stud. He's not perfect, but it's hard to nitpick players. Like, I'm not a coach. I don't watch the film like that to go and say, okay, here are the things you're doing wrong, and here are the things you're doing right, and I think you need to do this. It's not my brand. It's not my game. There are other people online who like to nitpick what players are doing, which is fire. It's just not what I do. You know what I mean? But I really like him. Like, he's a stud. He's made totally how many plays? He's made the best of his opportunity, and he's totally changed the game multiple times. Whereas even with Ohio State, Nebraska was looking like they were in a bad spot. Did he have a pick 6? He had an interception. It might have gone for a touchdown, or almost did. And it changed the complexion of the game. He's done it multiple times throughout his career. So he's a stud. I actually had a friend text me today from the Corn Craze channel. He's like, hey, I bet $5,000 on Iowa State to beat Kansas State. I was like, really? $5,000? He's like, yeah. And I was like, what'd you bet on? And he said a sports book. I was like, so you won, when you risked 5,000, you won how much? And he's like 4,400. So he paid a $600 vig to the sports book, which that's his own business. I don't care. It's not my $5,000. It's his $5,000. But as a friend, I feel like it's my responsibility to make sure my friends maximize their bets. So I told him, you've got to get on BroThrow. And today's sponsor, this season's sponsor, is BroThrow. So you guys have heard me talk about it before. I'm going to explain it really quick for you. You sign up at brothrow.com/corn. The link is at the description box below. They're going to give you a $10 free bet just for signing up. But once you sign up, when you bet on a game, you get an even money payout. So whereas the sports book, if you bet 5,000, they only pay you 4,400, BroThrow is going to pay you the full 5,000. So if you look at mine, you can see I've been paid an additional $10,000 on BroThrow that I would not have been paid by a sports book. So every time I bet 100, they would only pay me 90. They would take an 11% commission usually. BroThrow takes zero commission. So I've saved $10,000 essentially, which really means I've made $10,000 more dollars than I should have. Anyway, I'm just recommending it. I don't get paid if you sign up. Go and do your thing. Bet wherever you want. But as a friend to you, and as someone who I would call myself a sports betting advisor, since I've played on every single book you can play on. I've played every way you can, made tons of bets, and obviously I've bet thousands of dollars if I've already saved 10,000 in the last 2 seasons using BroThrow. I would advise you use BroThrow. Just try it out. See if you like it. It's a great website, and it's the only place that I bet straight bets on. So you can see here, I can take any of these lines. I can take money line. I can take the total, and it pays even money. Or it pays better odds. Like right here, this Virginia game's plus 145. On a sports book, that's only plus 125. So anyway, make sure you utilize this if you like to play and you like to bet on sports, because this is a great website to use. That being said, I want to give you my favorite picks of the week. I've got 3 of them for you. My favorite 3. I've got a ton I like, but we're just going to talk about my favorite 3. This Virginia-North Carolina State game is one of them. Virginia is plus 3. They're at NC State. They have a quarterback named Chandler Morris. He was originally at, I believe it was TCU, or maybe it was North Texas. No, it was TCU first. Then he went to North Texas, had like a 4,000-yard passing season or high 3,000s. Really good QB. Transferred to Virginia. This is a team who's really bad usually. NC State is respected in the ACC. This line, to me, is a bit low for a home game with NC State. I'm taking Virginia. The next one I like is this. This is my favorite of the week. This is Baylor at SMU. Keep in mind, Baylor just had a really disappointing loss against Auburn. I took Baylor in that game. They lost by, what was it? Like 16, something like that. Jackson Arnold ran down their throat, but I do believe Auburn was better than we predicted. Okay. People didn't know Auburn was going to be as good as they were. Their offense hummed. SMU is a top 15 team. They're coming off of a playoff experience or a playoff appearance. They're at home and they're only laying 2.5. That means on neutral site, Baylor would be a favorite. Something smells off about this one. I'm on Baylor. I can take this at plus 2.5. Bet 100, I'm getting paid 100, which I already did. You can see right here in my accepted. One of those is Baylor. Okay, my last favorite game of the week. Let me go down here. Illinois is playing at Duke. Now, this one's intriguing. Illinois is a Big Ten team. Duke is ACC. Duke's been, decent at best over the last few years, but they did get a new quarterback named Darian Mensah from Tulane. Stud quarterback. The line feels a little bit short to me. Plus 3. It's a morning game. We've heard that the morning kickoffs, or in this case, will be a noon kickoff for them since it's on the East Coast. Can be a little sleepy. I like Duke at home, getting 3 points. A lot of people on BroThrow are already on Illinois. I'm on Duke. So those are my favorite plays of the week. One more I'm going to show you just so you can see what Nebraska is looking at right now. Is Nebraska. So Nebraska is minus 34. You can see I'm on them right here. I'm waiting for someone to accept my bet. The total is over, or the total is 47. So do you think Nebraska scores 45? If you do, I kind of like that over, because I think Akron is good for a field goal. They don't want to get shut out. They're going to try to get into field goal range late in the game, kick a field goal so they don't get shut out. Kind of like that. If you don't think Nebraska scores 45, personally, I like that under 47. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm conflicted. I may just stay away from it completely and play the points. But that total is intriguing to me. So again, BroThrow. You get a free $10 bet if you sign up using brothrow.com/corn. Link in the description below. So those are my thoughts on some of the games. Just initial analysis. And Saray says she doesn't think BroThrow's allowed in Colorado, or sadly she'd join up. Yeah, it's not available in 2 states. BroThrow's available everywhere except for Colorado and Kansas. Very frustrating. Wish you could use it, Saray. Bill says, listening to analysis on playing Akron versus watching the NFL opener shows how much more of a Husker fan and college football fan I am in general. Yeah, same. I'm not even paying attention. I did take Dallas tonight. Let's see. Did that game even start? I'm sure it did by now. It's 5:50. Yeah, it started. I don't even care if I'm being real with you. I just don't watch the NFL very much. I watch certain teams. Oh yeah, here we go. Dallas and the Eagles have started. The score is 7-7. And Dallas has the ball, it looks like. We're loading. Don't know why I just reloaded that when I didn't need to. Doesn't matter. I was just going to show you the score, but you guys already know. There it is. And they're already in Philadelphia territory. The only reason this game's intriguing to me, because I don't play fantasy or anything, it's intriguing because every game's been a blowout. And when every game's a blowout, but the score or the spread is 8, you feel like it's going to be a closer game. So that one thing about this game is intriguing, that it might go down to the wire. And after this stream, I'm going to turn it on 100%. I won't ever deny football, but I prefer college over the NFL, as you guys know. Jose, to become a member, you have to do it, I believe, on your computer or your iPad. It's annoying. On your phone, it won't let you do it. I don't know why, but yeah, computer or iPad, right below where it says subscribe, right next to the subscribe button, it says join. And then when you join, you can become a member. Appreciate you for trying. Chase, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $10 super chat. He says, hey, Connor, so glad you do what you do for Husker Nation. Corn Craze is my favorite Nebraska channel. I've been watching you since you built the helmet. Glad you saw Josh Pate had us power ranked 21st. Well, thank you for that, Chase. That's a long time watching. Are you talking about the first time I built the helmet, like all the way back in 2020? Was it 2020? I believe it was. For those who are new to the channel, let me show you. You know what? We're gonna do a little deep dive. I'm gonna show you guys how much content is on this channel, like when I officially started it. A little fun behind the scenes. Let me go back to my videos. Okay. It's loading right now. There we go. So these are my recent videos, obviously, from this past season. But if we want to go old school, where is the error? Oh, it only lets me do that many. We're gonna go 50 per page. I'm gonna go back. I've made over 270 videos on this channel, not including live streams. Okay, I've been doing this for a minute. That is crazy. And I started this out of passion. There was zero money involved. Keep in mind, it cost me money to do this. So the very first video I ever put up, it was the Nebraska football 2019 season recap. I believe my cousin made this, and I had an Instagram channel or an Instagram page called Corn Craze, and I just posted this video on the Instagram page, and then I put it up here on YouTube. That was the first video ever in 2019. Then I decided during COVID I wanted to make videos, so I did a 2020 football record prediction. Then I did these 2 videos, which were about the transfer portal, because this is 2020 when it was kind of new. And then I did one about Nebraska's biggest rivals. I did these couple of highlight videos. And then I started doing more regular content. Then I reviewed the Ultra Boosts, these red Ultra Boosts. I bought Madden, Madden 21. I bought the Madden game just to play as Nebraska in the game, because there was this funny thing where you could do face of the franchise and it would allow you to pick a college team, and Nebraska was one of the college teams. So just because I was such a Nebraska diehard, I went and played the game as Nebraska for the 2 little snippets it gives you. I did some depth chart predictions, and I built my first helmet. So right here, you can see I built a custom Riddell Revolution Speed. And that was 2020. So Chase has been watching for a really long time. That was October 15th. So it was during season. And I believe I did it around that time because the season hadn't even started yet. Oh yeah, here. Season didn't start until October 25th, or probably 23rd, because I made this video right after they played Ohio State. So, man, think about how crazy it is. By the way, I built another helmet. You can't see it in this frame. I built that helmet right there. And I love building that one. I did that last year. So I have upgraded since that first build. But yeah, I've always been making content. It's like none of it made sense. It was like, let me just make it to make it. I don't know if it's going to get views or make money or anything, but it was just kind of fun. And that helmet video back in 2020 actually ended up with 10,000 views. So I guess it was worth doing. Anyway, just a bit of Corn Craze history insights for you. Don't know why. Just telling you guys stuff. Pit Snipe, thanks for being a member. He says, I owe somebody a huge thank you for the membership. I don't know who. I'm pretty sure that I didn't pay for it. Pit Snipe, I can tell you, it was probably one of two people, or one of three. Who would it have been? It was either Rod, or it was Serial, or it was James, Husker Nation. It was one of those three because they're the ones who donate the most of them. And it would have been after the game, I'm guessing. They were firing. After the game, we had like 1,200 people in the live chat. It was fun. The post-game live streams, to me, literally, I can't stop making content on this channel because I enjoy the post-game live streams too much. It's so fun. Like you get me at my rawest and realest. Like if I have to cry, I would cry on that, honestly. I would do it. I would have zero problem being my true self around you guys. Let's see. Rushy says the worst score he'd be okay with is 38-10, and even then he's barely okay with that. Dude, I agree with you. Nebraska's got to win by more than 28. It's got to be a 30-point win. They got to dominate. Otherwise, I'd be frustrated. Ugh. Old Haas. One question, Connor. What's the maximum points you see Akron scoring? I think 10. I don't think I'd go over 10. I think that's the absolute most. There's no way they're going to score more. If they do, I'll be sick to my stomach. Sick. They better not be scoring more than 10. My God. And they're only scoring 10 because the backups are in and there's a missed tackle or some miscommunication. There's something going on. But yeah, they better not be scoring more than 10. Right now, let me think off the top of my head. Let me give you guys my prediction. Because we've already been here for an hour, right? Just about. Brian says he received his master's from Akron. We should win by 50. Thank you, Brian, for doing your scouting when you were getting your master's. I'm going to say Nebraska scores 45. I'm going to say they let up 3. I think Nebraska wins 42-3. And I feel comfortable taking the 34 because even if they let up 7, Nebraska scoring 42 means they win by 35. I'm taking minus 34. A 42-3 Nebraska win would have me feeling confident. It should line up for them to be able to do at least that or more when they play against Houston Christian the very next week. And if they go back-to-back 40-point outings, I think that'll have a lot of Nebraska fans feeling confident and excited about the Michigan game. Although Oklahoma beating Michigan this week could do enough to make you feel excited and confident in it. But who knows? I mean, that's my initial thought. I really hope they score 40, though. It's time. It's freaking time. Evan, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $20 super chat. He says he's been a fan since 2022. I was a broke college student when I started watching, and now I have a house, and I'm about to propose to my girlfriend. Might do it at the USC game, but I don't know yet. NU by 1,000,000 this week, GBR. Damn, Evan. You've been watching for 5 years when you were in college. That's crazy. You're about to buy a house? You've been making freaking moves since college, brother. I don't even have a house. I'm living in a freaking apartment. You're crushing. Propose to your girlfriend's a big deal too. Wow. Okay, if I was you, I would 100% do it at the USC game. It's a once in a lifetime experience. You're going to be in a sea of black, not a sea of red, a sea of black. How crazy would that be? I mean, if she went to Nebraska too, which I'm assuming she did, if you're 5 years or fresh out of college, 4 or 5 years, do it, brother. That'd be sick. And film it too. Make a TikTok of it. You know how many Nebraska fans would go crazy if you made a TikTok showing you proposing to your girl like around the Nebraska stadium or wherever you would plan to do it? That'd be so sick. Good idea. I like that, Evan. Good freaking idea. And yeah, thank you for being a member for so long because, yeah, I remember your name every time I see it that pops up. I'm like, dude, this guy's been here forever. Brett says, I hope Michigan beats Oklahoma so that when we beat Michigan, it looks even better. So here's one thing. I'm afraid that if Michigan does beat OU, I'm afraid that if OU does beat Michigan, it's going to be harder for Nebraska to beat Michigan because Michigan's going to be more desperate for a bounce back win. However, if Michigan beats OU, I think it's more likely Nebraska could beat Michigan because they won't be as on edge. Either way, we're going to get a solid Michigan team coming to Lincoln, and it should be a 3-point game, and it's just going to come down to who executes in the final couple minutes, just like in 2021 when Michigan was able to strip Adrian Martinez and kick the field goal to win the game, right? But I want Oklahoma to win, and I'll tell you why. I don't, as much as like I'm loyal to the Big Ten and I want Big Ten teams to win, I really like OU this year. And I kind of want to see them defy the odds with a schedule that's so crazy. OU's schedule is nasty. If they can beat a Michigan and then beat Auburn and, get to that Texas game and either be undefeated or even if they lose to Auburn, have one loss, they could go on a run in the Big 12 and really defy the odds. So it'd be interesting now that Oklahoma's been in the dumps kind of ever since Lincoln Riley left to watch them bounce back. So Michigan, I'm just kind of over. They got to the national championship. They've been to the playoff multiple times. They cheated. I'm just done with Michigan. Let them lose. Let them freaking lose. Juan says you can't hope Michigan wins. Underwood would be so hot coming into Lincoln. That's a good point too. Underwood would be freaking hot. If he already won at Oklahoma on the road as a 5-point dog, then he comes to Nebraska as a 4-point favorite. Ugh, I would hate to see it. So yeah, I'm rooting against Michigan. I'll just put it that way. Z Guy says, I think we're preparing for Michigan, which is why we had a gritty win against Cincinnati. You know what? That's a good way to look at it, Z Guy. We're looking at it as Nebraska needs to have some gritty wins. So maybe if they only beat Akron by 10 this week, it's preparation for Michigan when it's going to be a tight game. But guys, I'm going to get out of here. It's 6 o'clock. We've been here for an hour. I'll be back on Saturday right after the game. It'll be late. Game starts at 4:30, right? My time, which is 6:30 Nebraska time. So I'll probably be on here around 10:30. Jeez, 10:30. Yeah. It'll be late, but it was late last time as well, and we had over 1,000 people watching. So it's Saturday night. What else you got to do? Anyway, with all that said, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.